The economy ending the year on a strong note. Stocks near record highs. The Federal Reserve slashed rates during the year. The Phase 1 China trade deal ready to be signed in January. We've got a NAFTA 2.0. These are all some pretty big accomplishments for President Trump. So what does that mean going into 2020? Well, of course, you know who's here for asking these kinds of questions. My friend Velshi to talk all things economy. Allie, if we take a look at it, I mean, look, the economy's pretty good, right? We've got GDP around, 2%, unemployment under 4%. I mean...
3.5% unemployment.
Yeah, picture looks pretty good. Can Trump ride that into 2020?
You and I were talking about this earlier on MSNBC, and somebody tweeted us and said, 93% of Americans don't look at that stock market and say, wow, look at my portfolio. So let's just hit that for a second.
It's a good point.
About 40-some-odd% of Americans own stocks. Most of that is through a 401k. And unless you're a uniquely bad investor, the stock market is up 28% year to date, right? It's a very, very big gain.
Yeah.
So actually about half of them, if your money is in the stock market and in something that looks like the S&P 500, which is generally where it should be, you did actually do very well on the stock market. Here's the rest of it. 3.5% unemployment should mean that everybody can go to their boss and ask for a raise because they're short of workers. That didn't materialize across the board. 2% GDP growth, it's abstract to people. They don't really know what that means, right? So the stock market and wages or the value of your house, those are the only places where it materializes.
Matters,
And you have a house if you've got money. If you're a higher earning wage earner, you've done well in the last few years. Where we're stuck is sort of in that middle class to lower. There are still people in this country earning $7.25 an hour. There are still people homeless. There are still people food insecure. So there's something weird about it, because if you were just looking at all those economic numbers, you'd say, this is great.
Yeah, things are good, right?
It's just not properly distributed. That's what the issue is.
So do you think, could we see President Trump running into trouble in November, as he heads there walking around saying, well, the economy's great, great. Does that open up room for the Democrats to say, wait a second?
It's going to be the same problem that Barack Obama faced. It's going to be the same problem that a Democratic candidate faces, except that some of these Democratic candidates are talking about universal health care and higher minimum wage, because Donald Trump went to Ohio in the election and said, don't sell your homes. Well, everybody who didn't sell their home probably has a home that's worth less now, because more factories have closed, jobs have gone away, coal mining jobs didn't come back. So there is a problem, because the rich got richer, and that's the way the world is going right now along the developed world. But he promised things to manufacturing workers, coal workers, that haven't materialized because he can't make them materialize. The fact is, that's not where things are. So the challenge is going to be for those people, and there are many millions of them, right? There are 40 million food insecure people in this country. So there are tens of millions of people who are sitting there looking at this remarkable stock market, more records. We got 2 new records today, 1 new record on the NASDAQ. But generally speaking, we've had a record-breaking stock market. They're looking at home prices go up. They're looking at this GDP growth. They're looking at low unemployment. And they're saying, what happened to me? I'm not feeling like I've been 10 years into an economic expansion. We haven't had a recession for 10 years.
All right, so let's talk about that, because you and I also talked about this before. I kind of looked at you and you said, I'm not a fool. You're not a fool. We know that the next year is 2020, but something in my brain didn't click like, wow, a whole decade is coming to an end, and a whole decade without a recession.
Correct. It's a big deal.
That's great, but then people start to think, well, does that mean one's coming?
Yeah, and I would have to say this. I think one always comes.
Yeah.
It's a mug's game trying to prove when it's going to come, and if you're adjusting your investments because you think one's coming, I wouldn't do that. I'd stay nimble, but I'd stay invested. The issue is they come. They don't all have to be like the last one. The last one came, it could have been a garden variety recession, but lots of things complicated it, and it made it into a jungle variety recession. We don't have to have that. One of the things that happens is central banks, who acted very well last time around, they can lower rates and they can stimulate the economy. The problem is that Trump has been putting pressure on them to lower rates all year, and they've been doing that, which is fine. It hasn't hurt the economy. It's probably helped the economy. But the Fed, that's the fuel in the tank for central banks. The ability to lower. Correct. And if you have no fuel in your tank when a recession comes, that's dangerous. So that's something to think about over the course of the next year.
All right, so we've talked about also the China trade deal.
Yes.
I know that seems to be, in a sense, a phase 1 deal done. We're waiting to see if they sign that in January.
Yeah.
People have been so concerned about this trade war. Should that calm people down?
Yeah, it should. Remember, a year ago, that's why, if you wonder why you've had a 30% increase in your stocks, it's because a year ago we were all panicked about a free fall because we were going to get into this trade war with China. We got into the trade war. We got into trade war a year ago. We were in a trade war with China and Canada and everybody else. Now we've got this USMCA. We've got phase 1-ish kind of with China. So it's probably not going to get worse. But for people looking at our trade issues with China, we haven't really improved on anything. What we've done is we're just not in the war. So, yeah, it makes people feel better. And I think that the president and investors will sit there and say, all right, we like it better when we're not in a trade war, so let's not be in a trade war.
So let me ask you this, and I hate to be the negative Nelly that looks at these positive things and says, are they a problem? But, okay, if we've gotten the trade war issues kind of out of the way, if we've gotten the NAFTA problems out of the way, if we have kind of cut Fed rates, and people kind of like to see that last year, does that mean that as we head into 2020, well, we don't have these events, these things to look forward to that might give the economy a boost?
I've never in a 25-year career been able to adequately predict what the next bad thing is going to happen economically. Sometimes
you probably wouldn't be sitting here.
I'd be calling this in from my yacht. Sometimes it's event driven because things happen in the world and they cause a recession or an oil spike, or and sometimes it's just the cycle. And we've not figured out, the smartest economic minds have not figured out how we create a world in which we don't have ups and downs. So I would say this: we're on a wave. It's going on right now. We should try to enjoy it. We should try and hope that all those people who have not been caught up in that wave somehow get to participate in that. But be prepared for things to happen, because economic expansions that are 10 years old are long in the tooth, and they can crumble.
Again, also, I'm not asking you to predict the future or tell people what to do with their money, but some people might watch this and think, all right, Allie, I have made some money last year.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Worried about some things happening next year.
Stay nimble.
Should I get out?
Stay nimble. Stay nimble. Stay aware of what's going on. If all your money's in the market right now, I don't think it makes sense to make sure you're balanced and you're where you should be, because you're probably out of balance if you last checked it a year ago or last changed things around. But stay nimble. Be ready to hear the cues. Generally speaking, a market doesn't just crash, right?
We don't all wake up one morning and it's all
We don't do that. But you might hear cues that things are slowing down. You and I will be talking about economic numbers that indicate that things might be slowing down. We'll give people a lot of cues. Now, at that point, those become tough decisions. Do I get out? Do I stay? What do I do? I don't think there's anything today that says there's something impending that is going to be uniquely dangerous for you as an investor.
So that's great news. It's Christmas Eve and you don't see anything uniquely dangerous today. We'll take it for now.
We'll take it. Take it on a day-by-day basis.
Ali Velshi, thanks so much for spending so much time with us on Christmas Eve.
Merry
Christmas. Appreciate it. You too, my friend.
Okay.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.